Welcome to the Wade Borth Podcast, where fresh thinking meets financial freedom. Each week, we explore ideas that challenge old habits and light the way to a stronger financial future. Let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the Wade Borth Podcast. I know we've talked about this subject a little bit before, but there's just a lot of confusion around this idea of infinite banking. And the problem, not so much the problem I have with the idea of infinite banking, it's just trying to describe it to people. It's one of those things where it is a fabulous thought process, it's a fabulous idea that we have. But some people, a lot of people, unless they've done a lot of research, and maybe you've done your research, you know what infinite banking is. But I just want to reframe the conversation just a little bit, just to help you gather a little bit more understanding to this idea of what's called infinite banking. So we like to call it, the stages of whole life insurance. And the reason why we like to use that is because I think that's a little bit more understandable. And it's, we commonly use the idea of, do you want ice cream or do you want the molecular makeup of ice cream? It's the same thing, but nobody understands the molecular makeup of ice cream. So today, again, we've touched on this before, but we're going to go back through this one more time again, just to bring some clarity to this idea. So we see this as, what we call the 4 stages. And what's really interesting is, I've known this for a lot of years, and it was one of those things that kind of eluded me, as I knew that there had to be a better way to describe this. And so we're going to dig in a little bit deeper into the idea of infinite banking and the 4 stages of whole life. So let's get started. And again, just to give credit to where this came from, a friend of ours, Nate Scott, shared this idea with me on his podcast, and this was so enlightening. And, we always, this is how I interpret it. This is that message that he shared with me and how I see it. And so we bring this back to the screen here. But this idea of there's multiple ways to start looking at what we call infinite banking. And quite frankly, most people that are truly doing infinite banking is a very small subset of the population. And it sometimes takes a while to get there. So if you read Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, in the book, he spends the first third of the book just talking about human nature. And we have to get really good at controlling our spending and saving dollars so we can build up this pool of capital. And that's where this idea of the saver comes into place. Right? So we have to be that person first. We have to become, because again, the most important part about Nelson's book is becoming. Who do we have to become in order to take control of this function in our lives, this idea of finances in our lives? It's this idea that we have to control our spending, we have to save more dollars. And so if you have questions around that, we have a whole process. We have workbooks, we have worksheets to help you say, am I saving? Can I save? Am I saving enough? Am I getting the right return? And am I saving in the right environment? So those are things that we ask question about. And really the follow-up question is, do you want to know for sure? So there's a lot of I think I'm saving enough. Maybe I'm saving enough. Am I saving in the right environment? Am I getting the right rate of return that I deserve in that asset? And am I getting all the benefits I need and I want with that asset? And if you don't know for sure, give me a call. Let's have a conversation around, does this make sense for you? So let's start with the idea of a saver. We believe, in fact, the conversation that we have all the time is this fits 100% of the population that's out there. And just by saving, you're going to take a little bit more control of your life. Because what happens, right? We hear this all the time. People have financial pressure, and that financial pressure, that uncertainty, the reason why you don't sleep at night is because you have a lot of assets. We talked to a lot of real estate people, a lot of assets, but there's very little certainty in their lives because they have no cash. So they're asset rich, cash poor. How many people have ever heard that before, right? So this idea of, are we saving enough? And if you're not saving enough, you don't have enough cash. It's causing this financial pressure because one little event in the economy could spell disaster. So this is where this foundational conversation comes into play, right? We want to educate you, bring some awareness to that thing that's keeping you up at night, that's creating that financial pressure in your life. And then let's empower you to develop a saving strategy. I think that's the real key. What is it that you can do, and what's your strategy? Let's put together some thoughtful, considerate ideas and processes in place for you to say, I can do this, I'm going to have some awareness, and I'm going to take control of my saving and my saving strategy. So that's the very first step. And one thing we're going to talk about is when we've talked about this in previous podcasts, we'll do more of it, I'm sure, in the future. But this idea that where we're saving is very important as well. So we love the idea of saving in whole life insurance because it gets you tremendous benefits. We talk about having 8 benefits, and that's a topic for a different podcast. But we love life insurance because it gives you protection that you want, right? So it gives you some emergency funding when you need it. So it's there, it's liquid, and it's an alternative wealth storage, right? So that's one of the things that a lot of people, I don't say a lot of people, some people we talk to, they just don't grasp that idea that, we need to store money in a different spot. So that's one thing. And then the efficiency of where you're storing it. And that's the reason why a lot of people don't store money or even save money, is because they don't see it as a value. They feel like it's wasted. But if they miscategorize it, it's funny because Nelson talks about that in his book. He talks about misclassification. That's really what he's talking about. We see it as something it's not, or we want it to do something that's not designed to do. It's designed to be a safe, secure, liquid part of your assets, that's why it's on the base side of this the saver conversation. So that's the saving strategy. And again, we have a whole series of processes that we can help you, just a thoughtful process we can walk you through to say, hey, can I develop a saving strategy in my life that's meaningful to who I am and to what my financial picture looks like? So let's move into stage 2, right? So which is what we call the wealth building strategy. The wealth builder is truly that person that wants a little bit more control. He's got a little bit of debt. Now he wants to start controlling that debt, because you have to realize that debt is the thing. It's either you controlling debt or somebody else's debt is controlling you. I've heard this said in a lot of other podcasts, a lot of other conversations that, we're enslaved to debt. But it's, to me, it's more of a choice, right? We have a choice. Are we going to be controlled by that debt that's somebody else, that we have indebted to somebody else? Or if we're going to have debt, and I think the reality is we're always going to have debt. The question is, how much of that do we want to control? And we've talked in previous podcasts, too, about this idea of a closed financial ecosystem. And that's kind of where the more you go down this pathway, the more you close this financial ecosystems in your life. So we want to start redirecting some cash flow back into our policies, have some, criteria around debt. Maybe we need to have some debt outside of us in the short term. And, what's the plan to say, hey, we're going to leave some of it there. We're going to start taking some more in-house, take control of that versus it controlling you. And then once you start doing that, then this idea of, okay, how do we do wealth acceleration or investment strategies, right? This wealth acceleration is a whole different conversation because it's not a saving strategy. Because that's where you can say, hey, I'm going to start buying some real estate. But you have to have the right sequence. And really, everything should flow through savings. And nothing really happens from a wealth acceleration standpoint until it flows through savings or the investment strategy. So you have to have a really good balance, right? You need to have a lot of cash on hand to take advantage of opportunities or protect yourself from chaos. And I've said this many times, like the only difference between chaos and opportunities when it comes to finances is typically who has the cash, right? Who has the money? That's typically what that is. So this idea of like, we got to have a safe, secure place to store our money that's not going to be correlated to the market whatsoever. That's the first step. And then when opportunities come, how do we deploy those dollars? So that's really why you want to have a wealth builder conversation. But again, this is all foundational. It starts with savings and saving enough and saving the right spot. And then when those opportunities present themselves, now we can have a wealth acceleration or investment strategy, as well as starting to take control of your debt. So I know a lot of people want to hop right to number 2 or number 3 in this process, but it really starts with, do we have enough in a savings to be able to do this? If you can't do that part, then it's really difficult to do stages 2, 3, and 4 if you can't do stage 1. So let's talk about the business banker. This is exciting for me because I see a lot of people, this is where they want to get to. And this is really what starts happening is like, we want more and more control over our finances. And so the further you get down this pathway, again, when you start with savings, you implement a little bit of control, because now you're not obliged to react to the market, react to the times, the event that's going on around you. You have a little bit of savings. You have a little bit of control. Then you go to stage 2, we have a little bit more control, because now you're saying, I have cash, I can take advantage of some opportunities. Now we're starting to see our cash and our cash reserves and our whole life policy as a business opportunity, where we the thought is where we start redirecting all our free cash flow into our policies, and we start expanding our systems, and we start using it as a wealth building strategy, not by investing in other places, but maybe by lending it out or replacing your outside debt that you're paying 15, 20, 25% on, and you bring that inside and you're charging yourself the same rate that you're willing to pay American Express or whoever else it might be. So these are certain things. And then again, you can be a hard money lender. You can be, there's multiple ideas like, how do I start treating it like a business? And you start acting like a business, and you have systems set up to support that business. That's the true business banker. And I think that's one of the key components, like how are we seeing this? And this brings you more control, because now you're controlling the money where it flows versus being the customer of that your bank or whatever it might be. Now you're starting to take a lot, more and more control. So I think it's really beneficial to kind of see it in these three stages, because now I'm treating it as a business, and you start thinking as a business. And so this is where people that really get this idea of infinite banking, they're really starting to become that person that says, hey, I'm willing, and you've heard me say it, I'll say it again probably 100 more times on these podcasts. When we start loving ourselves and our family more than we love Wells Fargo, and we start treating our money better than what we treat Wells Fargo's money, that's where the business banker comes into play. We see and understand how money flows, and we want to take control of it. And now we have clients or customers that are coming to our system to borrow. That's when it becomes a real business. And then stage 4 is the true idea of the infinite banker. And I really believe this is probably 5 or 10% of the population that really wants to get here. And there's no right or wrong. I mean, it's like if you get to stage 1, you're going to win by default. Nelson talks about it in his book. You're going to win by default, being in stage 1 or just being a saver. Because most people in this country aren't saving. And in stage 2 and stage 3, even if that's as far as you ever want to go, and you're like, I just want to save and I want to be able to do some debt strategy with myself and buy some properties, whatever it is, you're still tremendously better off than not doing anything at all. But this is just trying to bring the awareness, like, where do I want to go to? How am I going to get there? And how long is it going to take? Because we have to set some realistic expectations about how long does it take to get to these different stages. Again, if you're just starting at stage 1, you're just starting to save and just have a thoughtful process about where I'm saving, it's going to take you a little bit of time to build that up. And then once you've built that up, then you can move into stage 2 or stage 3, really stage 4. But this is a progression through a lifetime that, and actually, even if you read Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, there is, he talks about, it took him over 20 years to completely transform this idea of becoming an infinite banker. So where you maybe have a family banking strategy, you're thinking of multi-generational legacies. Because, again, you're not just passing money to the next generation, but you're teaching, having them understand, and you're closing that ecosystem around you. And you're starting to think about, what kind of influence significance am I having in my own family? What kind of leader am I becoming? So that's the idea of leadership and this idea of infinite banking. And again, most people have no desire to get there, nor will they ever get there. That's fine. But when I hear people talk about infinite banking, they think, oh, I got a policy, I'm going to take a loan against it, and I'm going to pay it back. That's infinite banking. I would say that's not. I think that's more of a stage 2 or possibly a stage 3 conversation. But the true infinite bankers are people that are practicing each and every day, and they live this on a daily, hourly, every waking moment type of situation. So because we implement this in how we take control of, what freedom looks like in our, 5 areas of life, how we're implementing it in all aspects of our lives. And most people won't get there. But again, so just realize that's okay, because each step along the way puts you way, way ahead of everybody else that's out there. So this is just a thoughtful process about where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And you might say, I may never get to a stage 4. Maybe I'll stick at a stage 3 because that's where I find comfort and that's where I find time. And if you get to that far, I can tell you that you're going to lead a whole different life, a lot more abundance in your life, because again, you're going to be the person that people are coming to when they need liquidity. That's going to be the real key, because the need for liquidity is greater than anything else as we go through life. And I've said this before as well. All a life insurance policy contract is a liquidity contract designed to pay out at a certain time. So the need for death benefit is great. The need for liquidity at death is great. So it's a liquidity contract at death, but it's also a liquidity contract each and every day before that. So it's our job to understand what it is, how we can implement it, how it empowers you to take control of your life in your finances. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining me today. Remember, small shifts lead to lasting change. Keep thinking differently, keep moving forward, and we'll see you next time.